Allahu Akbar. بهذه الطيعة.
How many more New Yorkers are not charged? Do you believe in the First Amendment? Do you believe in the First Amendment, Tom Homan? How many more New Yorkers will the judge let charges?
Ladies and gentlemen, they ran the same playbook on every continent. Muslim men desecrating Christian and Jewish graves in Dearborn, shouting Allahu Akbar. New York's Muslim mayor blocking Trump deportations. Trump stood at the United Nations and accused London of going Sharia, called Sadiq Khan a terrible, terrible mayor. This wasn't random. From Minneapolis to Birmingham to Dearborn, it was coordinated, and they got comfortable. Now 45 members of Congress have launched a Sharia-Free America Caucus. Senator Tuberville is calling for immediate deportation of anyone practicing Sharia law on U.S. soil. The hammer is coming down worldwide. What they spent decades building is fracturing. And what lands on them next, you are not ready for. Ladies and gentlemen, they just told us, on camera, exactly who they are. Here's the setup. Fast. Muslim communities across the West, Britain, Germany, American cities, have been pushing for Islamic law, cultural dominance, and in some cases, outright replacement of Western society. Sharia, in plain English, is Islamic religious law. Death for leaving the religion. Death for being gay. Women treated as legal property. It is not compatible with the Bill of Rights. This matters to you, to your family, to anyone who assumes they live under one set of laws. Here's what's documented. Britain first. 20 years of grooming gangs. 20 years of police too scared to investigate. Birmingham hasn't gotten better.
Now, there's some other things that were part of this package that we may need to add in upcoming, because I think there were some things that really need. I mean, for example, Florida doesn't ban cousin marriage, and that's a hanging curveball for us to do. We need to do that. Other states have done it. I don't know why we wouldn't, but obviously that feeds in to some of the stealth jihad that we see, when you're allowing things like that. It's things that are coming in from other cultures that are not consistent with the United States culture, and certainly our culture here in Florida. So this is important, but the larger issue is we have got to stop as a country importing people that reject the values of this country.
Community tensions. That's what the labor politicians called it. Our Democrat equivalents over here do the exact same thing. Protect the base, let the streets rot. Different accent, identical cowardice. Meanwhile in Florida, Ron DeSantis was going through a legislative package and said something I guarantee you've never heard from a sitting governor before. He connected cousin marriage, statistically more common in certain Muslim communities, with documented health consequences for kids, to something called stealth jihad. That's not bombs. It's the slow legal normalization of Islamic practices inside Western institutions, policy by policy, until you look up and your civil code looks like Sharia.
American people do not have any obligation, constitutionally or otherwise, to import people from foreign cultures who want to kill us. That's the first thing. The purpose of our immigration policy is to benefit the American people. There's no other reason it exists. We do not have any obligation to allow anybody to come into our country. We do so on our own terms and for the benefit of our own people. And to the extent that that is not benefiting the American people, I think it ought to be, immigration policy ought to be reformed or scrapped.
We cannot keep importing people who reject the values of this country. Count the politicians with the nerve to say that sentence in the last 30 years. You run out of fingers fast. And nobody was saying it publicly before Donald Trump made it acceptable to say. Congressman Brandon Gill said something even simpler. He said Americans have zero constitutional obligation to import people who want to kill them. The media called him Islamophobic.
I get messages that say the only good Muslim is a dead Muslim. I get threats on my life. On the people that I love. And I try not to talk about it. Because the function of racism, as Toni Morrison said, is distraction. My focus has always been on making this a city that's affordable, on making this a city that every New Yorker sees themselves in. And it takes a toll, because this is a city that every single person deserves to be in. It's a city that we all belong to. And the thing that's made me proudest in this campaign is that the strength of our movement is built on our ability to have built something across Jewish and Muslim New Yorkers, across New Yorkers of all faiths, and all backgrounds, and all boroughs. And anti-Semitism is such a real issue in the city. And it has been hard to see it weaponized by candidates who do not seem to have any sincere interest in tackling it, but rather in using it as a pretext to make political points. And that's what I've tried to share. Thank you.
The purpose of immigration policy is to benefit the American people. There's no other reason it exists. That should be the least controversial sentence ever said in Congress. Instead, it gets you labeled a bigot. Democrats protect this because Muslim communities in swing districts vote Democrat by massive margins. A political calculation dressed up as compassion. New York just elected a Democratic Socialist Muslim mayor, Zohran Mamdani. He went on camera about death threats he's been receiving. Death threats are wrong, I'll say that plainly. But watch what he does with the moment. "45 seconds from his own death threats to accusing opponents of weaponizing anti-Semitism. A practiced political pivot. The city he wants to run has documented pro-Sharia advocacy in local mosques and communities whose values don't match his all faiths and backgrounds speech. He'll never name that. Democrats won't allow it. The voting bloc is worth too much. Germany. What happens when you go all in on open immigration and spend a decade calling anyone who questions it a Nazi? Muslim immigrant communities there have expressed open support for establishing a caliphate, an Islamic state governed entirely by Sharia under a supreme religious political ruler, not elected. God's law, as interpreted by whoever holds power."
White people, if you are white and you're listening to this, listen very closely. Lately I've been seeing many of you complaining about Islam and the immigration and stuff like that. And I'm going to separate the white people in two categories. The Americans, Canadians, and Australians do not count because they are white people that live in a country that's not theirs. You guys have invaded those lands from the rightful owners. So when you guys get back to Europe, then we can talk. But for the European white people complaining about immigration and Islam, first of all, I want to tell you that Islam is going to take over every single square inch of the globe. And you guys might think that it's going to be us dark-skinned people that are going to take over. No, it's going to be your own people. As you can see how fast Islam is growing, in the next 10 to 15 years, every white person is going to have a Muslim member in his family. Nowadays you see white Europeans with blue eyes and blonde hair reverting back to the truth because they have finally seen the truth. And the thing is, there's nothing you guys can do to stop it. You guys can hate Islam as much as you want, and I want to thank the Western media for spreading Islam. A lot of weak-minded Muslims think that the the media is picking on us and bullying us, but really and truly the Western media is working with us. They have succeeded in spreading Islam, but intentionally. A lot of people did not know about Islam, but nowadays we are the most talked about religion on the media, and thanks to the Western media for spreading the truth. And so I want to say there's nothing you guys can do to stop Islam, nothing. And also, just to add it, the weak Muslims are the ones just to add it, sorry about the noise, just to add, it's the weak Muslims that always talk about Islam being a religion of peace. Islam is not a religion of peace. It does not mean peace. It means to submit to Allah, and it is a religion of justice. Put that in your head. It's the weak so-called Muslims, the cowards of this ummah, that claim that Muslims are religion of peace. I want to clarify that as well. Islam is a religion of justice. We can be peaceful, but when it comes to it, we know how to defend our land, our religion, and our honor.
Europe is 10 years ahead of us on this curve. We are watching our own future in real time, and our political class is still debating whether it's appropriate to ask the question. And then one guy decided to say the quiet part loud, on camera, for the whole world.
لا يجتمع كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام كافر وقاتله في النار أبدا. النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام يعطي بشرى لمن يقتل المجرمين، لمن يقتل الكافرين. وأي عبادة هي أعظم من سفك دماء الكافرين.
Ladies and gentlemen, Islam is going to take over every single square inch of the globe, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Not embarrassed, not hiding, addressing Western people like they've already lost. And Democrats hear that and still call anyone who responds to it a racist. Some imams preach peace, others don't bother with the performance.
Allahu Akbar. هذه مضيع. الله أكبر. اهدى شوية نبدأ في هذا بعد ننزلوا عليه هذا أسهل حاجة. هذا قبر الصليب فكوا فيه.
يا شباب ما تسمعوا الشباب يقول لكم مشوا بس يا جماعه
بغير تعال شوف العلامة اللي عليها تعال قدام في حتى كتيب.
Standing in a mosque, armed, saying, direct translation, there is no greater form of worship than shedding the blood of infidels. If a Christian pastor did this on camera, it's a congressional hearing within 48 hours. This, radio silence. The rules are not the same for everyone, and we all know it. The contempt doesn't stay in the words either.
Now you have all these Islam men yelling Allahu Akbar. I have a question for you guys. If America were to get in a war with a country like Iraq, who would you guys defend, America or Iraq?
We won't get in a war. That's not permissible for us. But at the same time,
who would you defend first?
We would support our brothers in Iraq. That's the only way.
So you wouldn't defend America?
We would not defend America.
But you're American.
But at the same time, listen. At the same time, America is our country because we were born here. But in our Islamic book, we're not allowed to fight with people that are against our religion. So we just take up the jail time.
So you would
That's
not,
what we do.
So you would not defend America?
I would go to jail instead of fighting for America.
And who would you defend if we were to go to war against a country like Iraq again, America or Iraq?
America.
And should that be a troublesome conflict of interest for somebody to be here in America that would rather support another nation, like Iraq.
Anybody who supports another nation needs to live in that nation. This is a Christian nation. A lot of the Constitution is based off of the Bible. And oh how far the country has fallen.
Destroying the graves of Christians and Jews. Filmed, celebrated, treated as an act of faith. And there is zero ideological screen